Hi all, it's me Justina from Investigative Selfism, and today's topic will be definitely the grimmest and the most serious that I've ever covered. I'd like to think that I've covered some serious topics before, but it's not really necessarily the topic, but the circumstances that not pushed me, but invited me into recording this episode. And since the season, this fourth season of Investigative Selfism, is what I have chosen to be all about getting real about things, I think right now for so many people, including myself, one of the very real things is admitting that it's very tough to be living through a genocide. That could be the whole message. That could be the end of the episode, and for me just to say that it's tough. But I have more to say. And the context is that, and this is not a language that I am using as a political commentator, which is my other big project in life, but this is the language that genocide scholars, Holocaust scholars, human rights lawyers are using when they talk about Israel's indiscriminate bombing and targeting of civilians, including children, in Gaza. So this is not some sensationalist language I'm using. It is a very unfortunate language that I'm using, but it's also what fits the situation. So without going more into the legal definitions of genocide, which I do in my other project in The Exploding Head, I just want to mention, what exactly prompted this episode. And hey, if you think it's relevant for you, then in a way, good. But I know that for many people, this is very, very, very relevant. And I feel that I really need to share some things. By no means I have great answers to what exactly you should do to keep on going, but I do have some suggestions, and I do have some things I want to share with you about sort of how I'm navigating things. And before I do that, I do want to say that I think that we are allowed, because that could be one kind of criticism that people might receive, but we are allowed to talk about that it's difficult to be sort of handling a situation, living through a situation, without that difficulty becoming the story. Because the tragedy is not me, maybe, it's not anyone outside of Palestine not doing well. The tragedy is the killing. The tragedy is the bombing. The tragedy is all of the atrocities we're seeing. That is the real tragedy. So I'm recording this episode not to sort of minimize the actual atrocities, but if anything, it's really to create that space and to hold space for everyone who's not doing well. And we have to get real about not doing well, and we have to, I would say, even normalize it, because what's the use of pushing it down? And what you're going to push it down to, some chronic illness in the future. Let's not do that. So having said that, a couple of things I want to say. I think one is that for some people, it's incredible how much of navigation is needed. And once again, this is not really tragedy. The real tragedy is what's happening in Gaza right now and the West Bank. And I know this is not the only thing that's happening in the world. I am aware of that. But this is also what's affecting me personally, and I know a lot of the people who I know, both personally and online, and just it's a big community. So I don't want to go into this, whataboutism. There are other things, there are horrible things that are happening in the world. I understand, but I allow myself to focus on this because I can actually speak to that. So I don't want to pretend, and say, and let me cover those other things. No, this has been my life's work. If I have any kind of life's work, it is for me Palestine. So it is something very dear to my heart. And once again, it's the personal connection that I will use in a project that is my own project. So one thing about that navigation, I know that for some it's so much, really, it's so much. It's the atrocities themselves, it's the seeing, like, every day on your phone, on your screen, seeing those atrocities that are very, very, very gruesome. Obviously, especially when you see, what's happening to the children. I think it's somehow, I think it affects you in a different way, I'll say. So the atrocities, something to navigate. The feeling that, could I be doing more? Should I be doing more? And the answer is always like, yes, I guess you could be doing more. Then another thing to navigate is realizing that some people are fine with this and some people actually support it. So people who are openly, including people you might know, they might be the people in your circles who suddenly now are expressing ideas that are fascist ideas. These are fascist ideas that there's a group of people, they're the enemy, everyone's the enemy, so, we can kill them, no one's innocent, oh, children being killed, doesn't matter, that's just like this, like, realism mixed with fascism, and people are stating it openly, and that is a lot to handle, that is a lot to process, and I'd like to claim that I don't care. But I think about it every day. Like, it's on my mind every day now, for months. So that's something to navigate. Then there's that silence of some people who you would love to speak out. And I think for me, and it sucks to admit, but that silence, like, I will remember that silence, in a way. And that's so sad to say. It's so sad to say. I wish I wasn't thinking about these things. But that's why so many things to navigate. And once again, they are not even the story, right? And I think on top of everything, and this is not an exhaustive list, there's that guilt. I know many people are feeling it, the guilt of living your life still, realizing how much of a privilege that is. From, oh, I'm taking a shower. I can take a shower every day. And, people in Gaza, Israel has intentionally cut not only water, but obviously food, electricity, fuel. So there's no running water, right? Not just at homes, but in hospitals, for example. So every day, you're reminded of, like, these are the privileges, even the privilege of living your life, right? I myself, and I said that in my previous episodes, like, I actually went to some concerts that I had bought tickets to beforehand, but still I chose to go to these concerts. Very recently, actually, I had a friend's birthday, and on that day I was just feeling increasingly sadder. I was like, should I not go maybe, because it's just, I don't know. And then I went, and it was so nice, obviously, because I saw my friends, and, like, we sang together, and it was beautiful. It was a really cool, a very joyful celebration. And there's, like, should I feel guilty? But, like, I kind of sort of, like, I claim I needed to keep on going. Anyway, so there's a lot to navigate. In short, there is a lot of, navigation that's needed. And I know that a lot is happening, not only, in your head, but in your heart as well. So, as I said, my audio, like this, I'm not even recording a video. I'm recording this at night, and it's just, I just want to talk without without the video. And once again, it's my project. So this audio, once again, it doesn't have really answers, but I wanted to record it, as I said, to hold space more than anything else, and to normalize all this. Not to normalize like everything's fine, this is how life is now, and the atrocities we're seeing, they should be normalized. They should not be normalized. They should not be normalized. But living through this very, very dark time, that it's tough, I think we have to say it. And I know that, in that, like, oh, let's get real about how difficult it is. And only you know what's happening on the inside, right? Only you know how much you cry every day. Only you know how much, you do this, and then you continue your life. And only you know what that does to your well-being. And, it's not a great effect, obviously. So what I want to say or to remind you today, right, is that, okay, there's a benefit in normalizing that. There's no need to pretend that, that things are great. It's fine to say that we're living through very difficult times and a lot of mental space and whatever processes are happening in your heart, that they're needed now to just continue your life. And it's tough. So what can we do? In addition to taking political action, and once again, I want to point to my political project, The Exploding Head, where I talk much more about that. But in addition to that, in terms of, mental health and collective action as well, what can we do? I think we have to remember that we have to find ways, and I have to admit that not all of my ways have been healthy. Not all of my ways have been healthy, but we have to find healthier ways, or most of them should be, I like to claim, healthy ways to self-soothe, right? So we normalize that it's tough. And if we have the privilege, and it's a privilege to have these ways, to self-soothe, we have access to certain things, we should use them, including somehow rest, because without that, we cannot continue to speak out. We cannot continue to, anything. So I was talking to a friend recently, and I was talking about this, actually. I was talking about my, not struggle, but some difficulties when I was on a very long, actually very prolonged job search, this year. And I really had to manage my thoughts very well. I had to use all the tools, that I've learned about, and all the tools that I had in my toolbox to really keep myself going. And in terms of my, obviously, mental health in general, but like my self-image and just, how I framed the struggles as well, how I framed the difficulty, how I really kept myself going. And in a conversation, I told that, I had this one day that's just one of the lowest points really in that search, and I just felt like crap, and I was like, damn, what I need to do, I need to move, so I need to go for a run. So I went for a run, I ran, and then I cried. So I stopped, I was walking, it was like road, no one's there. I was like, I'm just gonna cry. I cried a lot. Felt much better, because crying is a way to self-soothe, right? Cried, kind of walked, ran back, felt much better. And she said, oh, it's so nice that you know what your body needs, and like what it wants, like you're so in tune. I'm like, actually, no. This is just from research that I'm just like, just do what, neuroscience and psychology and like research in human behavior. And, I don't need to reinvent anything. I just need to trust, I just need to trust the science. So in a very now non-poetic, whatever way, this is what I want to remind you also. And there's a very good book by two authors, I think they're sisters, right? Sisters Nagoski, called Burnout. They were on a podcast, one of the podcasts by Brene Brown some years ago, and I'm like, ooh, I want to read the book. I read the book, amazing. Many frameworks, and they do talk about in the book about emotions as tunnels. So we really have to make sure we go through the tunnel, go through the whole emotion, so instead of denying, negating that to ourselves, to be able to leave it. So one thing, and then another thing very clear in many types of research, I think, is that stress lives in the body. We cannot intellectualize ourselves out of stress. Like, it was like, I'm fine now. I was like, no. And 4 things, okay, there might be more, but 4 main things. Movement, if movement is available to you. Crying is great to self-soothe. Being in community, being with others, talking to others. And then being very present, so maybe engaging in some kind of like a craft, something where you really have to be very present, some activity. So these 4 things, movement, crying, community, crafts maybe. And I know that in this case, it's not how we're feeling. It's not just, it's like one tunnel of one emotion and just like feel completely and you'll be fine. No. I know this what I am talking about today, it is prolonged already. And this is what I'm saying. We have to normalize that it's very difficult. And if it is a tunnel, the tunnel is very long. This tunnel is very long. But just because it's long, it doesn't mean that now we have to abandon all the practices that, if they are, that are available to us. So I myself, like when I go on my runs, I don't say, well, I should be maybe doing something else. It's like, no, I need to do this. This is my base. This is my base from which I, operate, whatever. I do sightseeing. I want to spend more time in the nature. We know that being in nature lowers our cortisol levels. Like we need that, right? So seeing friends, being in community, that's needed, and I know that I think probably the worst thing right now would be or to feel that you are alone. While in real life, there's a community of millions. There's a community of millions that are going through the same thing. So it's a matter of connecting that community in any way that is available to you. And I think we shouldn't feel ashamed if we spend time doing that. Because then if we shame ourselves for doing something that we actually need to continue our work, then, what the hell? What is this process? So that's what I've been doing. How successfully, I don't know. But I'm very conscious about it, and I'm trying to be very, very intentional and to share that openly, because I think we all need that. So thank you for listening. I know it became unexpectedly a long episode, but I wanted it to be a very, very open conversation. I'm just saying what I feel that I want to say and what needs to be said, and maybe in the way it can help or once again hold space for some people. And if you're thinking, if you're listening to the end, and you've been listening for a long time, so if it's been irrelevant to you, then you can pause. You can you don't have to listen to what I have to say, obviously. But if you're thinking, but I'm actually fine, and if you're saying that very openly and honestly, then I would say also openly, honestly, good for you. If you're feeling fine, then that's great. But then I want to remind you that not everyone, maybe some of your friends are not fine. Maybe there's some acquaintances of yours that might not be fine. And if you are acting now from a strong base, I invite you to check on them. So thank you all for listening. I write in my other project now. I'm ending all of my articles in a very cheesy way. Could be seen as cheesy, but that's my style. Anyways, I say stay strong, check on others, and keep your heart open. Because I think if you find your heart closing, then that's a casualty in itself. So I hope you keep your heart open. And thank you so much again for listening.